I think with medications, anytime somebody takes medications, I think initially they don't like it. And I think that's normal. I think a lot of people don't stick it out. I know that I, for myself, did meds, but it's not a quick fix. And people always say, oh, people take the pill in order to not deal with it. It's just a quick fix, and doctors try to push it off on you. And that's not true. Doctors don't actually try to push it off on you. You actually have to ask. And when you go to therapy, you're not a psychologist and a psychiatrist are two different things completely. And you have to actually ask for the psychiatrist. You have to actually ask to be put on meds. It's not something that your psychologist is just dueling out, because first of all, they don't write prescriptions for that, and they do have to refer you out to a psychiatrist. So there is an actual process. Yes, it is a crapshoot, but first of all, you have to volunteer to take the meds, and secondly, you have to figure out which meds work for you, and that's where the crapshoot happens, because it's a guessing game to figure out what works and what doesn't. But I think another thing that people always tend to forget is that it's a tool, like anything, in any type of therapy or any type of, you know, medications, or, you know, it's like taking vitamins. You have to do other things. You can't just take vitamins and think that everything's going to be okay. You still have to change your lifestyle and change whatever. But with medications, it's a tool. And if you're going to take the pill, but you're never going to look at the problem, you're never going to deal with the problem, then yeah, it is a quick fix and it makes you numb and you don't ever have to look at anything. But you'll never be off the pills. And that's your own fault. That's not the doctor's fault. If you don't want to do the work, you're not going to do the work, no matter what the doctors tell you to do. I did medications, but I also did other things. I also looked into diet. I also looked into exercise. I also looked into different types of therapy. And I used it as a tool. And the reason I used it as a tool is because sometimes when your things are really tumultuous and just crazy, you need to lift the cloud. I got a lot of slack for being on meds as long as I was, and the fact that I even took meds. I heard a lot about the propaganda and blah, 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 yada, 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 yada. I use meds as a tool for myself personally, and that's kind of how I look at therapy or any kind of types of those kind of modalities, is I look at it as a tool, and I don't just use one or just believe in one type of thing. I did my own, put together my own formula that works for me. I did a lot of research and figured it out. But meds for me was a tool. I really needed to lift that cloud, and I needed to not feel so intensely. And I needed to separate myself from my emotions so that I can actually look at my emotions logically, and I can look at the cause and effect and what my behaviors were and how it was all enmeshing in together and creating these explosions. I also needed to separate my emotions because my son was going through a lot of different stuff, and I wanted to be there for him, and I wanted to get him the help that he needed and facilitate his needs. And in order to do that, I needed to separate my own emotions because it wasn't about me, it was about him. And some of the things that we had to address was how he felt about me and what kind of mom I was. So I really needed to separate it and not make it about me and my feelings. It needed to be about him and his feelings. To better our relationship. And so I did go on meds, and it was a lot easier to lift that cloud and separate that and really look at things for what they were and identify where the problems were at, especially if you have PTSD or any kind of extreme emotions about things from trauma that you've experienced. So there was a lot of that, and so I really needed to do that, and it was something that I decided on my own, and I sought out and figured out how to make it work and put together a plan with a team of therapists and a psychiatrist. Very separate. So that was what I did, and it worked for me. And yes, at first, I would say the first year that I was on meds, I put on weight and I wasn't able to feel. I felt very numb. And I think that's where people say, oh, it doesn't work, or they don't like it. Women don't like the weight gain, first of all. No woman does like the weight gain, because you do. You naturally put on some weight. Nobody likes that. It is uncomfortable, let me tell you. It's really hard to get off. But the other thing is that I felt very, very numb, and I had to work past that. And I was aware that was going to happen, but I really wanted to be able to deal with my bullshit, and I wanted to get past this, and I wanted to be a better mother to my son, and I wanted to be able to work through his issues with himself and with me and his family and the dynamic between his dad and I wanted to get through those things. So, you know, it was a small price to pay, because eventually I learned how to feel again, and I did do behavioral therapy, and I learned how to behave different or react different to different situations, and I learned better coping skills and coping mechanisms. So for me, meds did help, but I used them in combination with other types of therapies and other modalities, and I put together a formula, and I sought through it, and I worked through it, and it was a progression, and it was a long haul, and it wasn't always fun, it wasn't always easy. And you know, when I first cried again, it felt really, really weird, because I didn't know what to do with it, and I didn't like it, and I had to really process what was going on and understand what I was feeling. And it did help me learn to understand and identify my emotions and what I was feeling when I was feeling it, instead of just feeling and having these experiences. I have a lot better understanding, and I can articulate a lot better what's going on with me because of it. So I think that meds might not be for everybody, and it's not an easy transition. But with anything, when you want change and you're trying to accomplish change in your life and in yourself, it's not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be easy. It is uncomfortable. It's hard work, and it's work. That's the big thing. Nobody wants to work for it. It is work. When you come from dysfunction, it takes work to come out of the dysfunction. It doesn't just magically happen. You don't just magically take a pill, nor do you magically find somebody that's going to save you. If you're not willing to save yourself, no one else is going to.